In the early 17th century, English merchants formed the East India Company, aiming to profit from the rich trade in Indian spices, cotton, and silk. With a royal charter from Queen Elizabeth I, the company gained exclusive rights to trade east of Africa. The first company ships arrived in India, seeking permission from the powerful Mughal emperors. In 1612, Emperor Jahangir allowed them to build a trading post in Surat, their first permanent base in India. Over the next century, the company focused on business, buying Indian goods cheaply and selling them at high prices in Europe. Trading posts expanded to Madras, Bombay, and Calcutta, with warehouses, forts, and small armies of sepoys to protect their interests. The company's main goal was profit, not ruling India. But by the 18th century, the Mughal Empire weakened after Aurangzeb's death, and local rulers fought for power. This chaos threatened company trade but also created opportunities for influence. The company began using its military and financial strength to gain advantages. What started as a trading venture was slowly turning into something much bigger. The instability in India set the stage for the company's rise. The company's foothold in India would soon become the foundation for an empire. The seeds of British rule were sown in these early years of trade and diplomacy. The company's story was just beginning. The next century would see merchants become rulers. The East India Company's transformation from traders to rulers was gradual but relentless. By intervening in conflicts between Indian princes, the company offered military support in exchange for money and privileges. Their disciplined, European-trained armies often outmatched local forces. The turning point came at the Battle of Plassey in 1757, where Robert Clive's cunning and alliances secured Bengal for the company. This victory gave the company control over Bengal's wealth and administration. After the Battle of Buxar in 1764, the company gained the right to collect taxes in Bengal, Bihar, and Orissa. Now, company officials used Indian tax revenue to buy Indian goods for export, making them richer than ever. But this system devastated Bengal's people. High taxes and exploitation led to famine and suffering. News of corruption and disaster reached London, alarming the British Parliament. The company's unchecked power was now a problem for Britain itself. The British government realized it had to step in. The era of company rule was about to change. The next chapter would bring new laws and new controls. The company's days as an unregulated power were numbered. The British state was ready to take charge. The British government, shocked by famine and corruption in Bengal, decided to regulate the East India Company. The Regulating Act of 1773 created the post of Governor-General of Bengal, with Warren Hastings as the first to hold the office. A council was set up to check the Governor-General's power, aiming for more accountability. The Act also established a Supreme Court in Calcutta to oversee British subjects and curb company abuses. Company officials were forbidden from private trade and accepting bribes. However, the Act's vague definitions led to power struggles and confusion between the Governor-General, his council, and the new court. Despite its flaws, the Act marked the first time the British state asserted control over company rule. It recognized that India was not just company property, but under the British Crown's ultimate authority. The groundwork for a new system of governance was laid. More reforms would soon follow to fix what this act could not. The British government's involvement in India was only beginning. The Regulating Act's problems quickly surfaced. Conflict between the Governor-General and his council, and a Supreme Court overreaching its authority. The Amending Act of 1781 clarified powers. The Governor-General's official actions were protected from court interference, and the Supreme Court's reach was limited to Calcutta. The Act respected Indian personal laws in court cases, acknowledging that English law couldn't simply replace local traditions. Revenue officials and zamindars were exempted from the court's authority in tax matters. This separation of executive and judiciary made the company's government more stable and efficient. The Act paved the way for a centralized British administration in India. The British were learning to govern a vast and diverse land. More changes were on the horizon. many in Britain still felt the company had too much freedom. Pitt's India Act of 1784 created the Board of Control in London, giving the British government final authority over Indian affairs. The company's directors managed trade, but all major decisions required board approval. This double government system made the company subordinate to the Crown. In India, the Governor-General's power was strengthened, and the presidencies of Bombay and Madras were made subordinate to Bengal. For the first time, India was officially called a British possession. The Act set the stage for the British Raj, balancing company interests with state control. The British state was now firmly in command. The company's role as ruler was now under close supervision. The British government continued to refine its control. The Act of 1786 gave Governor-General Cornwallis the power to override his council and made him commander-in-chief, centralizing authority. Cornwallis used these powers to reform the civil service, judiciary, and police. The Charter Act of 1793 renewed the company's monopoly and confirmed Cornwallis's powers for future governors-general. It also required that laws be published in Indian languages and separated tax collection from judicial duties. These changes reinforced centralized rule and aimed to reduce corruption. The system of double government was now firmly established. The British administration in India was becoming more structured and stable. The groundwork for a modern bureaucracy was being laid. The Industrial Revolution in Britain brought new demands. Manufacturers wanted access to Indian markets. The Charter Act of 1813 ended the company's trade monopoly, except for tea and China, opening India to all British merchants. British goods flooded India, undermining traditional industries. The Act also set aside funds for Indian education, a small but significant step. The Charter Act of 1833 ended all company trade, making it a purely administrative body. The Governor-General of Bengal became the Governor-General of India, with legislative power over all British territories. The Act promised equality in government jobs, but in practice, high posts remained reserved for the British. A law commission was established, leading to the codification of Indian laws. These acts marked the shift from commercial to political rule. The company was now the government of India in all but name. The seeds of modern administration and law were sown. The Charter Act of 1853 was the last renewal of company rule. For the first time, no time limit was set. The company would govern until Parliament decided otherwise. The Act introduced open competition for the Indian civil service, theoretically allowing Indians to join, though barriers remained high. Legislative and executive functions were separated, and a larger Indian Legislative Council was created. Despite reforms, resentment grew in India over annexation, social reforms, and economic exploitation. Just 4 years later, the Revolt of 1857 erupted, shaking British rule to its core. The uprising convinced Britain that company rule must end. In 1858, the British Crown took direct control of India. The era of company rule was over. A new chapter in India's history was about to begin. The century of company rule transformed India, laying the foundations for the modern state. British laws and reforms created a centralized administration, professional civil service, and unified legal system. The idea of a single government for all India, with a clear chain of command, was a British legacy. The Indian civil service and legal codes established then still shape India today. The principle of rule of law and a hierarchy of courts became part of India's political inheritance. When India wrote its constitution after independence, it drew heavily on these British-era structures. The journey from trading company to ruler not only created the British Raj, but also the administrative framework of modern India. The legacy of company rule endures in the Republic of India.